Hi, Ujjwal. Last time when we did a session, discussed on multiple things around AI engineering. However, the time was limited, so I thought of inviting you again to go a little deep into that. First of all, because the topic demands that, and there was no way we could complete it to the depth that we thought. That was I would consider a primer, and there is so much to cover under AI engineering. I think it is a literature on its own. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited for this discussion as well.
AI engineering world is becoming more of a, I would say, the key factor that is leading the organizations to deploying successful AI. Can you just like demystify what AI engineering means? What are the key components of this?
I think, first of all, AI engineering is pretty new term in the market, I would say. Since I am doing engineering practice, leading engineering practices, initially everybody knows we had data engineering, then we evolved into ML engineering. AI engineering is pretty new term. How I understand AI engineering and what are the nuances and differences, and this is totally my perception, is we although have ML engineering, but the differentiation of AI engineering, we add a product mindset, not just engineering mindset, a product mindset to bridge the gap between what a business required and what end product we created. We nowadays call them AI engineering. And that's why if you see AI engineering, usually people ask for, do you know how to create a front end? So a front end component to it as well, not just purely an ML ops or engineering side. So that's why AI engineering is a bit of bigger umbrella than ML engineering. Most of the organizations are still treating it differently though, because it's a sexy word, easy to attract talent. People started or organizations started saying instead of ML engineering, AI engineering. The work is same, but we call it as AI engineering. But yes, I think because I lead web app team as well, where we create front ends, ML, I think AI engineer somebody who actually have those skill sets and that thought process of a product. That's high level AI engineering, and the standard stuff goes along with it anyways. So when I say standard stuff, it means developing, implementing, managing, monitoring your, let's say, AI technology slash ML models is in general AI engineer, right? We can obviously break it down further and further how the development goes, what's the AI infrastructure required. AI infrastructure is also like compute resources, GPUs, CPUs, storage components as well, the management of it, frameworks, what libraries or software components you want to use, what data processing tools. So there is lot of layers to it, but this is at a high level, an extension of what ML engineering used to.
Okay. So, if an organization is looking to establish an AI engineering practice, how they should approach it, how they should build it.
I think it depends, and I always go back to because I worked in both consulting and the end user companies. First of all, companies should look at where they are at a maturity level. So let's say if a company never had an ML engineering team at the first place, and they are, and I'm on purpose using this ML engineering and AI engineering to be very specific and clear. Company never had a standard ML platform in their whole organization, and they say we are going to create an AI engineering AI platforms which have all the deep learning as well, LPs as well. I think they need to reassess and go back to basics where should we start from? Because if we are expecting resilience, that means we are almost saying we already have everything else. Let's say, do you have the right platform? So let's take a very simplest example. The industry will clearly recognize that a typical cycle of any data science model, right? Data scientists work on Jupyter Notebook, keep on improving the model, keep on inputting the data, cleaning the data. Once they have the final model, they pass on Jupyter Notebook to an ML engineer, let's say, and say productionize it, right? It's not as simple as just take that notebook, productionize it. You have to refactor the code, you have to do versioning, you have to maintain the git, you have to do a lot of software components, or I would say from software data learned, now from data ML is also learning. You have to have a platform where you can have what frameworks can be supported while I'm onboarding this new model from which a data scientist provided to us. What all frameworks should be required? What all compute I already have built in? Do I have a monitoring framework? Is anybody even thinking of a model drift? Do we even know if the data which is coming is a wrong data? What is our monitoring? What is our observability? So all these are, I will say, are step two and three. First is, do you have something to build on, like a platform? Or because in most organizations, the historically data teams were also like that, separated. Every business unit have their own data team. Data teams are more centralized now. We are also talking decentralized though, but ML teams are very much decentralized. Everybody have their own thing. Now people are also talking about, can we centralize it, at least have a robust platform where we can do this. Resilience, I would say, is in a generic terms everything, but because if you don't have monitoring, there is no resilience. If you don't even know if your success rate of your, although the success rate of most of the data science projects are industry standard is, let's say, 20 to 30%, but if you do not have even that success rate, right, you have to go through of why we are keep on doing experiments where we do not have the right use cases. So do are we even monitoring as basic as, has the pipeline failed or is it working, is there a drift after some time?
What kind of frameworks can an organization adopt to check how the pipeline is working?
So there are multiple, obviously, there are a lot of ways to it. And then we have to go back to more details. What MLOps platform now companies are using. If we have to go and follow, like, how can we monitor? And obviously, I'm talking about cloud. If you are in AWS, there is a SageMaker. If you are on, let's say, GCP, Azure, MLflow is also there. Along with it, are you observing what you have built? For observing, you can obviously, if you're creating your own platform, you can check on metadata, keep on sending alerts based on the metadata, whether anything starts from point A is reaching to point B or not. If not, there are a lot of external tools in the market which helps you monitor from point A to B what happened. So I think once you have all this, then you can say, yes, our systems are resilient. We know what we are doing. In absence of lot of things, it's sure, it's a step by step process, but that's the end goal. Should be there. We should all reach there.
What is your checklist or the criteria based on which you evaluate which tool is better than other or which vendor to go with as compared to the other? I know cost might be the one, the performance could be another. What are your go-to criteria list?
Like you answered already, my first go to criteria. Nowadays, that's what I feel in most organizations is the cost.
Okay.
Cost is one of the biggest, and obviously based on what cloud, what already the existing infrastructure you have. So, for example, if somebody is not on AWS, they should not, they don't even think of SageMaker, right? I'm just giving an example. If somebody is on Snowflake and not on Databricks, sure, they can go with MLflow as well, but Databricks have a higher support on MLflow, let's say. If you are not on none of these, you are just on cloud, like we are purely native GCP, we are less reliant on tools, we start building our own thing, then we go open source. How can we go open source and start onboarding stuff? And nowadays, like, as I started from, cost is a very big considerations with most of the organizations. These things are not cheap. And that's why I think most of the organizations are opting for open source because in the beginning, yes, and it depends again on maturity. I keep on coming back to the maturity of the organization. If the organization is just starting the journey and they want to accelerate really, really fast, they should go for the external tools. Like, don't try to build what people have already built because it takes a lot of effort from engineering and to attract that kind of talent who can build these things for you. It takes a lot of time, money. So if you are at a level where you're starting you're starting a journey in these areas, buy. If you feel you're already 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, you're quite mature, you know what you are doing, sure, work on build as well. So that's how I see it. It all goes back to where your company currently stands.
Okay, and when you mentioned cost as a factor, maybe the moment you're starting the journey, based on that, if you have taken a decision right or wrong, we cannot foresee at that time. How
Correct.
big a problem is a vendor lock-in? So if you really want to make a change later on, is that an easy move?
Not
Easy
easy. It's
not?
not easy. Yeah. So vendor lock-in is, and that's why, like, and it's not less where I work currently. We totally realize it. It's not easy. I think wherever I have worked with, vendor locking is never easy. Oh,
Mhm.
coming out of that vendor locking is never easy. It takes a lot of effort because not just that specific product, but you start building left and right around that functionalities of the product. So even if you now remove that particular product from your tool set, the left and rights need to be taken care of.
And or there is a way that companies can decouple in a manner that tomorrow, if I really need to replace some bit of it.
Again, I come back to maturity level because it is so important. I've seen all of it already where if you do not attract the top talent, you end up actually have to rely on the product and build the left or right of it. But if you do attract top talent and if you have that vision where maybe I do not want to stay with this product after 2 years. So I should build everything modular. It's all plug and play, not a full dependency of very typical traditional centralized platform where everything is dependent on everything. So in same organizations, you see both because some teams are doing in a certain way, some teams are doing in a certain way. A lot of people now, obviously, we are learning, are reaching, are more looking into modular architectures where they can do plug and plays and remove stuff whenever they want. Still, it is difficult. But the ones, if you're not doing modular, now you are stuck. Takes years to get out, not months.
So you mentioned something about pool of talent, right? So how do we get the right talent? Because there are a lot of talks about, job description saying that 5 to 10 years of experience into a certain skill, which might not be so new or cutting edge into the market. So which I assume is could be the reason that the person who created that job description might not be aware that what they're expecting out of. But let's talk about it that this is a reality. So how easy or difficult it is for a candidate who is applying for a role in this tough market to be on top of everything, come prepared with that experience because the skill might itself be so new that they didn't have a sandbox to test it out and prepare or have that practical hands-on knowledge. So how easy it is for first from the candidate perspective, and then maybe you can talk about from the organization perspective. Is the ask real, or can they provide that cushion or the period through which they can really onboard and then not just having the expectation of delivering as soon as they join the organization?
Sure. And I think it depends on technology. It is technology specific, let's say. Because
Okay.
let's say if we are hiring in, let's say, AI space, even if we break AI space further, if we are hiring for a deep learning work versus an ML work versus a data science work, at least the organization expectation is a bit different. Same apply for the candidate as well. If there is a candidate who is applying for a very cutting edge, just came in new technology in last couple of years, I think the absorbability of those candidates in the industry is easier because there is less competition in the market. But the problem is the only reason there is less competition is there is actually less demand. Only the top firms, top tens are hiring those people. The major hiring of, like, let's say top 10 tech companies are hiring, but the major end users, the consumers of those technology products are not there yet. They wait actually for a few years before they jump on the bandwagon of hiring those people. So if somebody from a candidate perspective is looking to get into a market where the technology is very new, I think they should only target the top technology companies because they have the right appetite to still spend lot of money on those new technologies where it has to be proven yet. The use case have to be proven yet. They can accommodate that kind of money. And I think the competition is less. So in a way, it's a good thing. They can get in. But if from a candidate perspective, they are not very niche in a very particular area, they are working like applying as a data engineer, ML engineer, right? The market, it's not like the market is very new for them. There are ML engineers, like you said, who actually have solid 7 years of experience, right? If you compare it with data, like solid 15 years, right? But if somebody has less experience, I would, because I've already spent 20 years in the industry, I can answer this from an organization perspective better, where every time organizations never look for the best of the best. The resume has to have 5 years or 3 years. A lot depend on the candidate, but do not a lot depend on the resume as well. Do not make your resume as simple as you read 5 lines and you know nothing and move on. So at least write the relevant information on your resumes where if we are looking at it, we know you worked on something because that's for me my first interface knowing a person or my team's first interface knowing a person. If you write very limited, there is nobody approaches further. If you write too much, nobody reads it further.
Yeah.
It
And
has to
optimal.
be the right balance. Yes. So I think that's for candidates. But organizations, I believe, are okay nowadays. We are very open. I've seen most of my peers in other organizations are very open in hiring fresh talent as well. It just depends on what we are looking during that time.
And for somebody who is coming up applying for a role that is niche in the market, they how do they first prepare for that? Because the technology itself, like you're saying, is yet to be proven or getting absorbed. So even if there is an appetite in the organization, maybe for the work they are hiring for, I think top tech firm that you're mentioning, maybe they're also prepared for that initial experiments not being very fruitful and all. So there's a lot of experimentation stage, and the engineers or the candidates who join, they also learn from that experience. But during that time, when they are also trying and figuring out, do you sense there is a bit of pressure as well on them to deliver when they themselves are figuring out? Figuring out is the word I've heard a lot. And I think I would rate it as one of the key skills when I look and hire the candidates. So, what's your criteria of evaluating the candidature? Because out of all things possible, when the technology is changing at this rapid pace, all you expect is for your team member to try a lot of things and figure out maybe by themselves, because there is no proven thing that's already laid out for them, or some guidebook that they can refer and then quickly deliver. What's your thought on this?
I 100% agree. I think the word is figure it out. So figure, I think end of the day, if you have two candidates, let's say, both are same in every manner, but one has an edge over, I have a sense that this candidate can figure things out. Definitely that candidate is getting it. Because every industry, irrespective of niche technologies, even in existing technologies, new innovations keep on coming, right? Where you used to, people started with SQL databases. Now we're talking about, so obviously we've even moved on graph databases to more of iceberg tables and all that stuff, right? So it keep on evolving at every level. I think we do need, the industry do need people who can just figure it out.
Nobody can handhold you and then teach you things as it used to be before. So even if the standard onboarding frameworks are there's a lot that is evolving, and catching pace with the one who is helping you through the journey, for them as well, it's difficult. So like you're mentioning, yeah, figuring it out even for the standard technology could be
100%. And believe me, it's not for the people who are coming into the market, into the company. This applies for the people who are in.
the organization. Yeah.
So it's a common thing where people ask, give me written what I need to do. And you're like, that era, nobody can give you in written or what needs to be done. Figure it out. What's going on? Yeah.
So I'll consider that as an X factor for any candidate looking to join the organization.
100%.
Okay. So now, because you're talking about ML engineers already, right? So what I've seen, I think you also mentioned in the beginning, is when you have data scientists writing code into the Jupyter notebook, and when you really need to production, that needs to be refactored and rewritten in that manner, is where the place where ML engineers also come into the picture, where they take the code or all the artifacts from the development team and then go into deploying them. Are there any best practices that, or any templates that those ML engineers can give back to those dev team, so that there is a very strong handshake between the two and there is less of rework required and it's more about design thinking? So can embed that while designing the whole work?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay,
Is it simple? Exactly. Is it simple? No. So
probably possible, but when you actually
yeah.
take them to the ground, it becomes a challenge.
Yes, 100% it is a challenge because I think how we are approaching it, I can answer that. And I won't say this is the phase where every organization is growing nowadays. That's how journey happens, right? First you figure it out. Okay, started things working. Now, oh, we waste a lot of time. Somebody gives a Jupyter notebook. Why an ML engineer is taking so much time to just productionize it? Everything was ready. ML engineer says, no, nothing was ready. You just give me something and I need to make it ready. So everybody have seen those phases. We are also in those phases as well, where we are like, okay, fine. We understand this is not stopping. This is what it is, right? How can we improve further? From there, we started off, okay, can we now create templates which will give to data scientists themselves? That even if you are making changes and in your code and everything, can you start following these best practices? Because when we start applying from a code refactoring perspective and all that, it's easier for us to code refactor or it's easier for us to deploy further, right? We are in that phase where we have started doing it, where we are saying, okay, here is one template, start using it. It's again experimentation. Sometimes we feel they will come back, this is not going to work out. I don't have that much time, right? And sometimes they'll adopt to it. And again, it's a back and forth exercise where it's a similar journey. Software evolution, software platforms, data evolution, data platforms. We are in ML evolution and ML platforms are is going to be the thing where you are giving the what frameworks you are going to use to data scientists as well. You're telling them upfront. You're telling them what libraries or even and one challenge was, let's say somebody uses Spark, somebody uses TensorFlow, PyTorch. So how can you design a framework agnostic platform irrespective? I don't want to, so how we see it is, I don't want to push it to a data science community that you improve. Instead, can an engineering side improve and say, irrespective of what framework they give it to me, I can apply it. I'm building an agnostic platform. So have we cracked it yet? No. So we are still working toward that, but that's the vision where we see, at least I see a lot of growth from our engineering teams, where we solved a lot of problems already on software side, data side. Let's apply it on ML side. And I on purpose treat ML separately from software data, because some leaders feel all are similar. So all show the similar traits, but they are different in nature. Different problems, different solutions, different people solving different problems. And that's how I see we end up supporting it in future and fasten the cycle.
Okay, so Ujjwal, when you mentioned you are like at least trying and your engineering team is trying to give those kind of best practices to the data science team. So by the time they receive those artifacts, it is easier for them to integrate into the workflow and deploy them. Can you mention a couple of the best practices that are universally applicable, maybe? It's not very organization specific that anybody can take away from this session.
I think it's tough to say for the best practice actually, because there are a lot of components. So, for example, when you talk to data scientists as well, like they expect a feature store to be there, let's say, because if the expectation is okay, you want things to be fast, I end up doing a lot of feature engineering, I end up creating a lot of features. Do you have a feature store for it, right? Is have you already thought of creating all these features upfront so I can start using? That's again one side of the thing. Other is I have to do a lot of collection, preparation, quality. Can you first improve the quality for
To face this, to improve the quality.
That's a very tricky question. It's everybody's responsibility means nobody's responsibility. So that's one of the most tricky questions.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for data quality? I try to always see what I can do to solve that problem. How much data quality check I can take on myself, on my team to improve things further. But there is no simple answer to your question who's responsible for data quality. Like everybody is. And that's why data quality has been a problem since actually I started my career. So vendor is responsible, the data from coming from responsible, the intermediate integration layers are important. Everybody has a role to play. It can things can break anywhere from actual data to the whole end target, and everybody is responsible. The data producer itself is responsible. Engineering can put a lot of checks, a lot of things to check in the background. That's the best they can do. Obviously, engineers or nobody should change the we cleans the data, but nobody should change the data. But if the data itself is wrong, this is what it is. Like now go to the source.
You think that data consumers who are the closest to the data, they would be better knowing what shape and form they expect the data to be in? And if it is not in that format, then there is something wrong with the data quality. And then maybe they can pass this signal or input to the data engineering team and somebody can fix that up. Is that how it should work? Because to know that data is not of good quality, you need to know what the good quality data should look like.
100%. But how I see it is that's the pretty standard way of working in the data quality area, right? For example, even if you go back 15 years, that's pretty standard. Business looks at the data, they say this is not the right data or this is somehow different. I was not expecting null values or expecting some better cleansing, or I was expecting value A, it's showing value B. And then it trickles down and everybody works, engineering works toward it's a problem in the platform or it's the file itself or the data itself from the source. A source can be SAP, let's say source can be a marketing data from, let's say, Facebook, if the data itself is wrong. That's a typical cycle. I totally agree. And in most cases, if you are foolproof from an observability perspective, foolproof from applying all data quality rules perspective, then if you follow this cycle, I agree. Because engineering did everything what they could have done. And now business only can tell whether they feel the data is right or wrong. But how many organizations are there where they say, oh, we are fully proof from data quality perspective, from engineering perspective. Oh, we are observing end-to-end pipeline where a pipeline should have started at 7 a.m. And there is no anomaly. Every day 1 million records come. Today also 1 million record came. Like on an average. How many organizations are there who can actually say we are observing everything end to end? And if there is a data quality issue, business, you tell us.
Okay, so I have two questions here.
Yes.
One is that do companies today at least have a way to measure their quality of data? Like, can I say that my data quality is some percentage, right? It's 60% good, it's 70% good. I know how far I am from how ideally my data should look like. So I know how progressive I am. Is there a way we can measure that? Companies are
I
doing that?
think there are a lot of nowadays. I do not remember the proper names. We call these checks as there are like proper names for these checks where we rate maturity level of data in the organization. Can companies are companies measuring it in today's world? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Is there an easy way to measure it? That's difficult to answer. It's very much, is it like scientific way of answering or saying where we stand on our data quality? I don't think so. It's very much feel based,
Yeah.
because every organization have multiple data platforms, multiple ML platforms, multiple data products, different sources, different teams managing different platforms, different tools supporting from a quality perspective and perspective. There is no easy way. Like, I have never found a scientific way to say what
It's
is the quality of my data.
of your data quality state. And I'm the most I've seen is people are giving you that 2 sigma, 3 sigma view of your data, or it could be about how accurate your data is, relevancy, consistency, timeliness, and all those factors that they choose. But I'm still seeing most of the companies having a static view of data quality. It's not, it could be very much about a particular attribute in
100%.
self and not rest of the attributes taken together, and together how your a particular data record looks like, whether that's a legitimate one or not, right? So that the whole comprehensive view of data, I think I have not seen any company, at least in my experience, giving me that kind of view. So have you seen a situation like this evolved, and are we better off?
I think it is still in pieces, I would say. So for example, if something is getting generated in a report, let's say, and that report being used by, let's say, finance, right? Finance is very particular about numbers. That's the only team who is the most particular. They know cent by cent what's going on in the company. They will make sure data quality is there.
Yeah.
Nobody cares now. Finance will make sure, the engineering teams, the science community, everybody is on their foots to make it happen. But because there is a report, there is an audit generated to measure that, we can measure it. But lot of data products, there is nobody measuring anything, right? Um, and that's why, if we go specific to finance or reports or the sigmas, and are there reconciliation or audit checks, sure, every organization is doing stuff to measure it. But if we have to generalize, is there an easy way where we say, let's generalize it? You have probably 100 data models, probably 30 tables or 300 tables are feeding those 100 data models. But the platform itself have 1,000 tables in it. There are 2,000 pipelines feeding those ones. Do you say your platform is data quality efficient? How how will you answer that question? So that is the challenge.
Okay, so out of two questions, one was on this. Second was having monitoring is good, but once you know that there is something off, how do you attribute to what exactly could be the possible cause? Like, how do you do the RC, the root cause analysis of something that is not purposefully going right in your pipeline?
100%. I think observability, how I see observability is, and I'm so happy that this industry has evolved a lot, because this was a big problem since a while. How I see it is, it's not monitoring as per se.
Okay.
It's something where, let's say, technology is observing how your data is moving. Let's say it simply. Traditional way of monitoring is, something happened, somebody has to look at it, and monitoring is more at numbers level, not at an infrastructure level, not at an anomaly level. Monitoring is something, okay, 1,000 records came, nothing failed. It's good. It's still good. Observe, but was 1,000 supposed to come or 1,000,000 supposed to come, right? And that's why I'm saying these are very overlapping terms, but I, in my head, differentiate that monitoring is 1,000 records came, nothing failed, monitoring is good, green.
Okay.
But from observability perspective, every day 1,000,000 records coming. Today 1,000 record came. Something is wrong. So that's how I, in my head, say it's an anomaly, and it's observing. We are observing our platform to see what's going on. Then it's like, go back to health checkups. You want to observe. To observe your body, you need to monitor it further. So I know I'm going into very deep of observability monitoring, but sometimes it looks so similar. Sometimes when you go deep, it is a bit different.
Okay.
So
Okay. So
yes.
then back to those 5 to 6 criteria where, or
Yeah.
not criteria, the ways that things can go off.
I think from observability perspective, or things will go off, is primarily the infrastructure. If you go traditionally, people have Teradata, SAP, where usually in your orchestration, things do not fail from a different infrastructure issue perspective. But in a cloud journey, you have Kafkas, you have PubSubs for real time, you have buckets, then you have BQs, you have different tables or Redshift. Every technology is different. Although everything is a service provided by the cloud, you don't know where the movement of data is broken. So you need to monitor the infrastructure. Along with infrastructure, you need to start tagging when things is moving from point A to the end point, let's say Z. It had multiple hops. How would you tag from where data started to all the end through it multiple hops? From an observability, how can you visualize it is through lineage, but you have to put an extra effort to go to the metadata level and enhance your metadata further to start adding those tags. So you know it started from point A, but it took such a big journey from all data pipelines to finally ML pipelines to the product. And these 10 pipelines or these 10 data sets in the beginning contributed to the end product because the technologies will keep on changing in between. The stacks will, not the stacks, but what you are using to store data, to move data, to transform data, to let's say tokenize or encrypt data will keep on changing. And you have to tag your things. Again, the purposes of tagging is if somebody new comes in, he has zero context, but he or she can see, oh, something failed, but there is a tagging lineage across which can tell, okay, this is where it started from, and this is the impact at the final stage. Again, infrastructure, but enhancements to the infrastructure. I already mentioned anomaly detection. This is big, right? Again, depends on maturity level. If somebody is observing, let's say, if I'm observing things are working fine or not, and one day I felt from last 10 days, I was just receiving standard stuff. Somehow today I'm receiving, instead of 10 errors a day, 100. Something is wrong for sure. Instead of 1,000 records, 1 million records. Something is wrong for sure. It's not testing. It's more of alerts where, and that's why in our industry, we call alert fatigue as well. How
Yeah.
many alerts you need to generate, right? Because for everything, you can end up creating an alert. And
Mm.
for everything, if you do not create an alert, you don't even know.
Yeah.
So we have to strike the right balance, and it comes through experience, multiple iterations, purely about are things working as expected? That's it.
And what's
Is
the
it
so if it is not working as expected, then?
then alert? Somebody needs to action it. For example, if freshness, right? Data
Mhm.
was supposed to load at 10 a.m. Let's say nothing happened at 10 a.m.
Okay.
One day is okay. Like at what level you put alerts on? Is your buffer is 11 a.m. okay?
Mhm.
Noon okay? 2 p.m. okay? At some moment you have to raise an alert that something didn't come today, right?
Okay.
So those kind of checks we have to implement. And that's why I'm saying right now a lot of tools in the market does provide this out of the box.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. And I think one thing that we all talk about very often is when you're building enterprise grade software. The way I see is that there are three main factors that you should be able to build something that can scale after doing the feasibility check, definitely. And when you're talking about scale, you need to make sure that this is scaling viably well. So
Mhm.
scalability, feasibility, and viability are, I think, the three critical levers of building enterprise grade AI. What is your thought on that? Do you think there are more factors that one should keep in account for? And how do you want to kind of, extend on these three factors that I mentioned?
Scalability is very important. I 100% agree because, and everybody ends up falling into that trap somehow, although everybody knows it. Because when you start your journey in let's say AI, at that time you just want to prove, right? You want to prove something it's working, right? At that time, I don't think anybody thinks of scalable solution. And people just want to prove things out. And my experience, once things are proven, everybody just want to press the accelerator button. Go, go,
Yeah.
go. Like, okay, fine. So I think in that phase of go, 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 everybody, every leader, every developer nowadays, every engineer still knows scalability. We have to think from a scalability perspective. But because go, 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 it still take a bit of backseat
Mm.
when we design things. Depend on obviously intensity of go, go, go. If it's no, no, I want it like right away. It's working. Let's go fast to the market. Sometimes experience is also lacking from a scalability perspective. Sometimes budget constraints from stability perspective or scalability perspective, sorry. But it becomes a big problem for every organization one day where there is a wrong sense in the leadership that we have everything is set, everything is ready, let's build more, let's develop more, and then people realize, oh, we cannot scale that easy. We never kept that in mind when we were developing things. Unfortunately, I've seen this multiple times across the organizations, and I don't think it's anybody's mistake. Somehow that's how the industry works as well in certain ways where people just wants to go fast. And that's why I always differentiate between a company whose product is a technology product, where a company who is the consumers of this product, whose actually end product is probably a bank, a loan product, or a retail shop. The consumers fall definitely into this phase of We wanted to go fast, fast, fast. We wanted to prove something and get some more sponsorship from a very high level if it's a very heavy cost inclusive work. And it is necessary because at that time, if you talk about scale and you delay stuff, maybe it's not happening. Maybe there is no budget for this. You delayed it so much. So I think it's a standard cycle. It's a bit different from the technology product companies itself because they think scale from get go because that is their end product.
Yeah.
So they have to. That's why I always differentiate between how a tech company thinks versus how a company who's using these tech products think. But scalability is very important, just primarily because of speed and cost. Both end up spiraling up if you don't look for scalable solutions, platforms, both. And what was your next point? Sorry.
How to scale viably. You need to
Okay,
have a viable solution, right? Because you mentioned about budget, cost, and a lot of other things associated when you scale.
good question. So, scalability is I don't have an easy answer.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm that big of an expert there yet.
But how difficult are those conversations for you when somebody asks you to scale, but that too within a budget to make sure that it's worth spending every bit on that?
I think it's not a difficult conversation. Let's say because usually the conversation starts from deliver versus create a solution from day one, which is more, or platform from day one, which is more scalable, right? Every leader till the topmost you go, understand the difference between the two. Every leader picks one over other based on the priorities at that time. So that's why I don't think from a leadership perspective, it's a tough call. It's an easy call usually. And once everybody starts seeing we're not able to scale, like it becomes so evident that everybody obviously try their best from an engineering perspective, from a leadership perspective to scale whatever existing they have. But everybody ends up being in a phase where we need something else to scale faster. It's not working as we wanted it to be, right? Once we hit that roadblock, then obviously results comes out where okay fine somebody will sit on parallel and think scalable in
Okay.
parallel people can start building on all this but a budget has to be given or a team has to be given or a vision has to be there somebody sit on the side to make things scalable. I've always seen every leader is supportive of that because everybody reaches that phase depend on timeline from one company to another but everybody eventually reaches that stage that we have to think scalable and create something in parallel which can and start onboarding everything to those scalable solutions.
Okay. And let's say on your journey to scale, something is feasible and you're about to scale and you're halfway there, or maybe somewhere in your journey, you realize that it's costing way more than your initial estimates were, and that it doesn't look like a project worthy to be picked up for. When do you think is that leading indicator that leader gets that it's time to pull the plug, let's kill the project, the benefits are not outweighing the kind of amount that's getting into this? Have you seen that thing happening in your experience ever?
Yes, I think and I won't try to say it in a very I want to say it in a very positive way. Leaders get fired because of that.
Is that a positive?
Yes. So the reason I'm saying positive, like I want to give it a positive spin because if you end up spending a lot of money on certain things without any results and not raising any alarms all along the way, it's I would say leaders have to do better, right? Every organization, again, no, when let's say at a C level at executive level, people make decisions. It's all in positive intent that yes, everybody understands it will take time, it will take money. Where the thing starts going down is or down south is where along the way, if you do not highlight, there are challenges. Along the way, if you do not highlight, things are not working as expected, or the cost is way up than expected. We have to stop down certain things and still keep on just going along. I think that creates problem.
How long is too long? Like if you've taken too long
It
to do,
depends on organization's risk appetite.
again,
Uh,
maturity of an organization.
100% because in some and sometimes culture as well. Some leaders in organizations are very much into checkups every month.
Okay.
So they are not, although they trust their even executives, but they're not leaving anything as assumption. Some organizations have culture of sure in 6 months we'll check, right? It's not about good or bad. It's different style of working. I worked in both styles. Every style have pros and cons. I nowadays feel that keeping a tab of how things are working and be very close to the things is a good thing. Nothing comes cheap nowadays.
Yeah.
When I say cheap nowadays, we are talking scaling, right? If you're thinking scaling, if you're thinking long term, we're easily talking million, right? Nothing comes cheap nowadays. And it's easy to sidetrack by a lot of things, by the talent you have, by the comfort you have, by the culture you have. And that's why keeping a close tab on things really helps. I take these things very seriously because it is somehow a leader, a team failure if you do not raise the alarms when it should be raised. And some I think everybody knows it. It's not like me or other leaders do not. The problem is some leaders do not even think that this should be raised. It's not an alarm. This is standard. And
Yeah.
some leaders thinks, oh, it's a fire alarm. Let's raise everything right now. And that's the nuances everybody learns from the industry.
You need
That
to go to understand that.
100%. Like there are no easy ways. Like that's how I see it. But yes, in general, no. At least I have never seen challenges from support from scalable perspective. Every leader at every level understands scaling solutions takes a while, takes money, takes the right team, but projects fails as well.
I see. That's, I think, something for all of us to learn. And yeah, that's a good conversation, Ujjwal. With this, I think we've come to the end of discussion today. Ujjwal, thanks a lot for coming in, and I look forward to talking to you next time soon.
Same here. Thanks for having me.